right, what's up, guys? Dave Lipson here with my Thunderbro Jason Ackerman. We got a special episode of our Thunderbro Thundrcast. We're talking with one of our athletes, Matt DiBenedetto, and Matt is no regular Joe. He is a fucking badass. I mean, he is a NASCAR driving, skull smashing friggin' animal. And we met Matt over the internet. He reached out and said he's doing some of our Muscle Anarchy programs and kind of instantly hit it off a little bit. And we actually almost didn't even start the podcast because we were getting so busy just throwing out with each other. But Matt, thank you so much for joining us, dude. You're coming to us live from Hickory, North Carolina. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, you're home in Hickory.
Yeah, awesome. And you're with the Penske Racing team. We got a bunch of questions for you. I know Jason has a bunch of racing questions, but I'm going to kind of kick it off with the training because that's kind of like my language, like the common vernacular that I'm really with. Matt, you've been following our program. Like, tell me a little bit about like how you found us, how you got into it, and as a driver, and also just as a man, as an athlete, like what were you looking for out of a training program? What are some of the demands of your sport and your life that kind of drove you towards Thunderbro?
So first part is the team I drive for is the Wood Brothers. So it's Wood Brothers Racing, but we have an alliance with Penske Racing. So it's kind of a complicated, confusing deal. So that's totally normal. But yes, so we're a Ford team. But yeah, so as far as my training stuff and what we were growing out about a little bit before we got started here is I've always liked, lifting and working out. It's always been kind of my mental stress reliever. And, just I only have like really two passions in life. And that's basically driving as fast as I can and lifting stuff and working out and pushing myself. So I don't really do a whole lot, So I was at a point, it was probably a few years back where I got burnt out on what I was doing, just kind of doing my own thing and lifting and the typical bro stuff and whatever. And I just got bored on my own. And then, so I was like, one of my old crew chiefs was really big into, he was a former bodybuilder, and then he, did it at like a real high level. And then he was heavy into CrossFit, owned his own gym. And he was like, hey man, try CrossFit out. And I was like, really? Like, okay, whatever. It was the perfect time because I was pretty, bored and burnt out. So I did that and switched for probably, 2.5 years of just like, I went pretty straight up CrossFit. And then, and I really enjoyed it, taught me a lot. And it was, real refreshing for me to learn, a lot of different things and all the Olympic lifts, just stuff and push myself changed my mental threshold, and that translated over into what I do for a living. And so I could go on and on about that. But also, we all want to look good and, be muscular. I'm kind of known as the guy, and I totally embrace it in the NASCAR world. People always give me a hard time, especially after the off season. I have a bunch of time to lift and work out and stuff. And then I'll show up to Daytona and be like, hey, Matt, man, been having fun doing roids over the off season. Like, yeah, funny. And so so I have fun with it. And that's kind of been, people know it's my passion. But the long story short is, I've always, I enjoyed CrossFit a lot, had a passion for it, but also when I was really just doing straight CrossFit, I realized, I was getting functionally fit and strong and all, but I also was like, man, I'm really kind of missing some of my physique, and some of the aesthetics were kind of going away a little bit. So I was happy with my performance and how fit I was becoming, but also I was like, man, I need to get some of that physique back, and I want to work, back more on some of that stuff because I enjoy it. Everybody wants to look good, man. You work that hard, I want to look good. And then so a friend of mine actually at a CrossFit place that I dropped into, and I'm good friends with him. He was like, hey, check out this Dave Lipson. And I was like, all right, what's this? And I've followed Cammy and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay. And I put it all together. So I followed and started following Thunderbro and all that, and then did a couple workouts with my friend Ryan Ellis is his name, and he's a former racer. He's driven himself, and then started doing that, and then got, he showed me, after following, I saw Muscle Anarchy and was like, that's literally exactly what I've been looking for. And then long story short, I'll stop rambling. That's how I got into doing it.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. I tell you, like, I'm listening to you, and I'm willing to guess, I think a lot of athletes, especially high-level athletes that compete at, like at your level, at the world-class level, especially race car drivers too, I bet they tend to be pretty damn competitive, and it's usually hard to keep that competitiveness to the racetrack. I know I've got that personality where like, I don't like things, I love them, like it's just like, I go all in and as somebody who is just naturally competitive, when you get exposed to CrossFit, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to be great at CrossFit, but you're going to push it. And one of the things I always worry about with high-level athletes is like, yeah, have fun doing this, but don't fucking hurt yourself. You make millions of dollars for your body. You don't need to tear a shoulder doing a squat snatch or a muscle up. And I think that's why I personally had to kind of step away from that competitive part of CrossFit or find something else to put that type of energy and drive into that wasn't going to put me in a place where I could potentially hurt myself. And then kind of same as you is like, outside of trying to see like how fit you can be, or, everyone in the world wants to be the fittest athlete on the planet. One of the things I love is just physicality. Like the process of building your body is a beautiful thing. And it's one way that, you walk in a room and you can actually see your work on your body.
Yep.
You're wearing it around. I remember a buddy of mine a couple of years ago, he's a strength and conditioning coach at a D1 school. And he said, hey, CrossFit's cool, but it makes girls big and guys skinny. And I was like, well, you're not wrong. That's not an incorrect statement, but it's contextual. Because like, yeah, it makes girls bigger because most girls come into the program like under muscled, like in general, most girls don't really expose themselves to that kind of strength training and compound lifting. And yeah, it does make guys skinny because most guys coming into the program, like the majority are just overweight. So like, yeah, gravitate towards an athletic body type, and it does garner hypertrophy to a point. But everything about CrossFit, all the different realms it touches, it's like all a compromise, right? I say like the CrossFitters' capacities are incredible, but their physiques are kind of non-remarkable in that they look like average Joes that can just do some really cool stuff. And I'm like, I want to be able to do that really cool stuff, but I want people to like, be like, whoa, that dude has that physicality. Or they look at you and like, that's an athlete right there. So, Muscle Anarchy is fun because instead of worrying about like, how much weight's on the bar or how fast you're doing the workout, it's just more about getting the training effect. And then we're able to kind of blend it with functional fitness or a CrossFit-esque style workout, but reducing the risk factors, right? Because that's like always works. I don't want to end up back on the surgery table. I'm not trying to be the fittest athlete on the planet. I just want to look good naked and not be hurt and have some fun doing it.
Exactly.
Really cool, man. So like where do you normally train? Because I know that when you're doing your race circuit, you guys are probably on the road quite a bit, right?
Yeah, so I'm flying down tomorrow to Daytona, and we will start tomorrow. I just have to weigh in, and then Saturday we'll practice, Sunday we'll qualify. So we're starting our race season now. So my schedule, once we get into a normal routine, will be, not too bad. So I'll be home, tip home-ish, Monday through Thursdays. And so we'll sometimes fly out Thursdays, sometimes fly out on Friday early mornings. It just depends on the schedule. So it's actually gotten a little bit better as far as that. I'm, doing a lot of work on my preparation and stuff during the week.
Hey, Matt, I think you might have muted yourself. Matt.
Is it your computer thing?
No, there are people here. No, it's not. Wait, what'd you do?
I did that. This is the volume button.
Where'd he go?
Fuck.
Well,
we're still recording.
We're recording.
Matt's out there somewhere in the internet. He's floating around. It's like Wreck-It Ralph. He's somewhere in the internet.
Let's let him catch up to us.
All right.
I think he muted himself. We're recording.
All right.
Just making sure. And so let's talk while we're waiting for Matt.
Couple takeaways.
There he goes.
Cool.
He's back on.
Really cool dude. Really cool dude. There he is.
Matt,
all right.
You I think you muted yourself and then here we go.
Okay.
We got you. We're back.
I think something. You started to talk about, when you were traveling and then you're home Monday through Thursday and then you
That kind of sounds like the NFL schedule. I know these guys usually, I mean, because they're usually playing on Sundays and stuff, so they get the week kind of at home in practice, and then they're just road dogging it to wherever on the weekends. So, like when you do train, do you kind of have like a regular gym you go to at home, or you just kind of hopping from city to city, kind of trying to find places to patch it all together?
Yeah, so my usual routine, hopefully, give or take, it can change sometimes, but hopefully on a good week will be Monday through Thursdays at so I go to our place, CrossFit Catawba Valley.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's huge, and we have a whole giant area in the back. So if I'm not doing a class, I can go in the back corner, and they have like a bunch of pads, bunch of weights, everything we need, all the bands, all the stuff. And I can do, the muscle anarchy stuff back there and do the full workout. Or I also have a gym membership at a local gym here. It's called Southside Power and Fitness. Your typical kind of Globo gym, but it's nice though because it's got like a whole CrossFit-ish type area in the back. So if you're doing your compound lifts, things like that, it's a pretty cool, well-rounded gym. So I can go there. So I'll pick and choose, either change the scenery, do either or, and then on the road, if we're flying out, our Fridays are covered up because we're practice and long day. So Fridays will be my off day as far as that stuff, or if I miss a day at home, whatever. I'll usually get in 4 to 5 days a week, regardless. And then Saturdays is kind of cool because our schedule is, it sounds crazy, we literally do one lap. All we do on Saturdays typically is qualify. So I say our qualifying's at noon. I wake up, eat a big breakfast, do all my stuff, and go to the track, run my one lap, and I'm like, all right, well, that was it for the day. So me and my buddy Ryan we'll go to a gym afterwards. So I mean, it's a pretty easy day, and go do a day, whether it's a arm day or however it falls on Anarchy, to get that 4th or 5th day in.
Yeah, like that's one of the hard things about programming sometimes is like, I think people sometimes think like if they go to the Globo gym, then in some way they're sacrificing the program. But what I've tried to do is kind of take stuff you would find in a traditional Globo gym, some of those machines that have a lot of utility, and translate them into the equipment you might find in a CrossFit gym. And I mean, there's nothing that replaces those compound lifts. So you see in the program, the first couple movements are always kind of compound things.
Yep.
But all the stuff you see with bands, I mean, those are all just substitutes for machine work. So being in like one of those Globo gyms is not a disadvantage at all. In fact, like a lot of times, like, getting the machine, it is a little better. Bands are great, but you can't really load the same way with a band as you can on a machine. So, if you have access to a Globo gym, it's fun. The problem is like Globo gyms are just usually not as fun because you don't get to talk with your buddies. It's not the same kind of social environment as a CrossFit gym. You should put your headphones on and do your thing or whatever. So like, I'll kind of balance between both of those. I'll sometimes go to like a Armbrust Pro Gym or 24-hour fitness, and then into the CrossFit gym or in my garage, where I was kind of blending things together. My dream though is to get CrossFit gyms to start building bodybuilding areas, because now what you can do is you can combine the functional fitness with the stuff that's really targeted isolation movements and aesthetics, and you can create these really cool fucking programs where it's like the CrossFit bodybuilding program, which is basically Muscle Anarchy, and have it all in the same place. That's our ultimate goal with Thunder Bros, to start to kind of like affiliate into these CrossFit gyms to be able to create bodybuilding programs that are functional. Couple of things. I just had a couple of questions. So you mentioned you do a trial lap on Fridays. I'm kind of unfamiliar with the sport. Does that dictate your starting position when the race comes, or is that just to qualify?
Yeah. So we will do two. Yeah, so we'll do 2 practice sessions on Friday, pretty straight up, an hour a piece or whatever, and to get our car dialed in and what we need. And then Saturday we do our 1 lap of qualifying. That's it, and that's our starting position. Based on our speed, our lap time. That's just straight up, just like you saw at the F1 race. That's straight up just our qualifying, or that's our starting position for the race. And after that lap that we do on Saturday, typically some of the schedules are a little different, but normally they impound our cars. So you pull it. I drive the car to the garage stall, and they you can't touch it. That's it. And nobody touches it. Nobody works on the cars, nothing until Sunday when we're about to get ready to go race.
That's crazy, man.
Something else you mentioned, you said weighing in. What does that mean? Is there a weight limit? You have to be under a certain weight?
So yeah, you've helped me. Your program's also helped me over the off season, because we're a little bit backwards from what people would think when I tell them we're weighing in. So it's kind of beneficial for me that they started doing this. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it used to be where it was just a car weight and that was it. Like your car has to weigh 3,400 pounds, everybody across the board. But I weigh 212, and most of the drivers are really small. A lot of them are, I mean, let's take like Kyle Larson is one of the drivers, for example, and he weighs maybe 130 soaking wet. Yep. And so, I mean, my car with me in it would be way heavier. So what they did to balance it out is the driver weighs in. And so and it's in 10-pound categories basically. So I'm at 212 and I want to be at my very heaviest for this weigh-in. Yep. Because the heavier I am, like if I'll make the 210 to 219 weight category. The heavier I am, the lighter my race car can be to balance us all out. So if he weighs in at 132 and I weigh in at 212, my car's going to be, 60 or whatever pounds, 70. I can't even do the math right now, but my car's going to be that much lighter.
So it's like just creating that level playing field so nobody can have like a crazy light car compared to everyone else. But being heavier can be advantage because the actual vehicle can be lighter.
Yeah, so it's kind of a give and take. It's a good way to balance everybody out so that when I'm sitting in my race car and he's sitting in his race car, I'm a heavier guy compared to most. So we're at the end of the day going to end up being basically the same weight. The only little bit of advantage that those guys can have is their car has to be heavier. So they can actually put that weight down lower in the car. So for center of gravity stuff, but at the same time, my weight, we're making you typically left turns. My weight is on the left side of the car, which is kind of beneficial. So it kind of all works out okay, but it's nice that they do that so that I'm not at just a huge disadvantage for being heavier. But over the off season is definitely my time to bulk up and be at my heaviest weight for when I weigh in. And then after that, if I want to cut down a little bit or whatever, that's fine then.
Nice. We'll get you to like 225 next year and the car can be a toothpick.
Exactly. That's the goal. So I felt like 212 for me was about right this year, but I keep last year I was at 201 is what I weighed in at. This year I was 212. I was like, all right, just keep bumping it up every year, getting bigger, getting stronger, and then I can cut down after.
You're kind of like a sumo wrestler. Like it's one of those sports where being heavier has a advantage versus growing up wrestling or Dave cutting for bodybuilding where you typically want to get down and lean. You can just gorge yourself.
Yeah, so basically before first race, before weigh-in, you want to be as heavy as you can to make sure you make like your car as light as it can be. And then if I cut down, 10 pounds, I don't cut down that much. I mean, I like to stay, a little bit broed out. But if I cut down a little bit afterwards, I just want to make sure I'm not going to get heavier throughout the race season because then I'd be kind of shooting myself in the foot a little bit.
So tell me, like, I'm somewhat familiar, but like, what are some of the physical demands of being in the car for the race? What's the hardest challenge of actually being in there that you have to prepare yourself for?
So, it's interesting because I would say like what you saw at when you went and trained like the F1 guys, what they do, I would say their job in driving those open wheel cars with the crazy amount of G-force they go through and the physical demand of those race cars, I would say their cars are more physically hard on them and their bodies. I'd say ours are totally different in a very miserable way is they're really hot. And obviously your heart rate is super high. And they gets to be in a summer race, the temp inside our cars, it's just like baking in there. It can be 130, 140 degrees.
Oh,
and you sweat out, I did a weigh-in before and after a race last year at New Hampshire because it was 90 something degrees outside. It was 140 inside the car. And I'll put an ice bag in my suit. Some people have cool suits. I don't do it. I do the old school ice bag way, and I trade out on pit stops and stuff. And I drink a ton of fluid throughout the race. Like I have a water bottle, and I drink my mixture, and I'll swap out on pit stops too. So I'll drink pounds upon pounds of fluid throughout a race like that. But either way, long story short, they weighed me before the race, and I was 208 pre-race. This was just in gym shorts, no shoes, nothing. And then post-race, after drinking, all race long, sweating everything out. I drank so many bottles of my fluid. Trading out every pit stop. And then after I got out of the car, I was still like fairly dehydrated, and I downed a Gatorade and a water and all this. And I was like, oh crap, I'm kind of screwing up the weigh-in. I want to get a more true weigh-in. But either way, I was still 198. I was still 10 pounds lighter, even with taking in all that.
Yeah, and that's with staying hydrated. Had you not done that, you're sweating out a good 20 pounds. You're like basically like an MMA fighter trying to make weight. That's the way to go.
Yep, exactly. So I would say, answering your question, stuff that is the hardest on us is, physically it is tough, especially when we go to like road course and stuff. The cars, we're bouncing around, it's beating you up a bunch. And I think like the physical strength and things like that are a big advantage, but handling the heat, the stress, the heart rate, all those things combined. You get out of the car and you feel like you're just so drained. Sometimes you get out of the car after a hot race and you don't want to like physically stand up. You can cramp up really easy, all those things, and so like pushing myself harder, changing my training, all that made me honestly change my mental threshold a lot, which was the part that I enjoyed the most. And even like when I do, when I'm doing the anarchy stuff, I like the fact that it's, well, one, you got to bust your ass. There's not a whole lot of lollygagging around time. So I like that aspect of it, but you're pushing hard, you're going hard, and then you'll have a Metcon that'll still kick your ass and keep that mental threshold. For me, that's what I like about it the most, is obviously you're staying functionally fit. But I love how the mental threshold of like damn near drooling on yourself and doing movements and things that are safe and good for me and keeps me, in good health and safe and functional, but still pushes me so hard where that translates to where I'm in the car and honestly in pretty miserable conditions, but you kind of block that stuff out mentally more, where it's like, this is still better than being in the middle of, Fran or something and dying and about puking on the floor, so it's like, it's not so bad.
Just a low grade level of awfulness.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, like, it's interesting. I think a lot of people kind of view, especially, in the CrossFit community, they kind of view bodybuilding as maybe being like not intense or easy or just kind of maybe not effective. But the truth is, if you're doing it right, it is really hard. It's really intense. It's a different kind of intensity. It's like being able to, take a muscle to failure. And the God's honest truth is, the way you grow, like that adaptation process, it's a defense mechanism. You're going to war with your own body to try to make it to grow. So it can't be comfortable. It's just not like CrossFit. Like, you're not just going as fast as you can, because in a lot of cases, when you do go as fast as you can, you're losing that training effect. Or as heavy as you can, you can't accrue the right amount of repetitions to incur the kind of muscle damage we're looking for. So it's a different kind of a mind fuck, but it is still like really hard. And my wife, who's done CrossFit for a really long time, she's always kind of surprised at how much it sucks, because she wants to go heavier or harder. And I'm like, no, you got to do it with the tempo. You got to do the drop set. And she gets absolutely schooled. But it also, in a nice way, is kind of limiting those risk factors, limiting the things like the super heavy loading or the speed that can sacrifice positioning and mechanics to be able to make sure that it's a healthy kind of growth. And in a lot of cases, you're fortifying yourself. You're making yourself more injury resistant by increasing the thickness of your tendons, by building musculature around some really sensitive critical joints. There's some common areas of breakdown. So, it kind of goes hand in hand.
So I've got a funny story for you actually on that one.
Sure.
This was like a few weeks ago or something. Anyways, my friend Kelly and I, he's actually coming to your one of your things here that I can't make.
Yeah, we're doing a camp out in North Carolina.
Yes,
Raleigh area.
Yeah, his name's Kelly. So he's my best friend. He's who I actually train with most every day I'm home. He's a cool dude. He's been around, like, he's an old school guy. He's been around since the beginning ages of CrossFit and all, and he does Muscle Anarchy. And when I like when we were first kind of lifting together and stuff, I was like, man, I was like, you should do or when we were just about to start working together, I was like, hey, we should do this program. It's called like my Thunder bro, he's like, it's what I do, man, you moron. I was like, oh, perfect. So anyways, but we trained together, so he's a really, really cool dude. But what we were talking about the intensity of the anarchy stuff, we were doing one of the workouts, and it was the leg day, and it had front squats. It was a front squat, like the 3 slow, 5 fast, 3 times through, or whatever it was. And it's kind of deceiving because you really don't. I mean, one, you got to have zero ego to do that type of tempo work on the front squats, especially for me. And I was doing it, and I was literally I thought I was gonna like either puke or pass out when I finally dropped the bar, because I went. It was like, oh, that was probably a bit heavy, but I still pushed through it and did it. And I checked, and I looked at my my watch, and my heart rate was like 186 or something at the end.
Yeah, it was like 2-3 minutes to recover. I mean, and leg day's the worst, man, because
and I put the bar back, I rack it, and I'm like sitting there breathing so freaking hard. I'm like, and I'm about to damn drool on myself. Like, I don't know if I want to pass out, throw up, what I need to do, but it's cool because I don't feel like beat up or anything. It's just, blew my mind where I was like, and while we were doing this, CrossFit class was going on. And I was like, holy shit, I think I'd rather be doing the damn Metcon they were doing than that one set of front squats.
At least it's over quicker, right? Like, geez. Yeah. God, I tell you, like, leg day's hard. It's really hard because that's a most important day for hypertrophy, really. It's like, it's your biggest muscle group, and you get a huge hormonal bump when you hit legs hard. Things like testosterone, growth hormone, all that stuff spikes. So, like, training your legs well makes your whole body grow. But by the time you get to that 3rd or 4th exercise, usually that's when the demons come calling. You're like, oh boy, like I was going outside. I was like, just get a breath of air. Or you start being like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun stuff.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's awesome. So hey, let's switch gears a little bit. So here's a question I had for you. When you are just driving around, you're driving around town, you're in your car, would you just get frustrated at these amateur drivers driving so fucking slow? Like, do you ever get like, you're like, I just want to rip through this stuff, or what?
Yeah. It sometimes drives me crazy, and I try and keep things a little bit in perspective. Like, my wife will yell at me when I'm getting mad at people for, merging on the interstate and going slow as balls. And I'm like, Jesus, come on, get the hell out of the way. And she's like, babe, these people don't drive race cars professionally, like, and or when we're in the rain and they're going, slow. She's like, babe, you've raced in the rain before. It's a little bit different. Like, fine. All right.
So I always thought about that, the movie Days of Thunder, when they both rent rental cars, and then they trash the fucking cars, like driving everything.
I've been banned from driving rental cars in my younger days at a couple race teams. I've done some. I mean, thank goodness I'm older now and a little wiser, and realize I probably need to use my brain occasionally. But I've got some good jumping rental car stories, running into each other. Me and one of my friends, Alex Bowman, he's a driver. He drives the '88 car. He took over for Dale Jr. a couple years back. But we cannot be in rental cars anywhere around each other, because we were at like a stoplight one time. I come up on him and I give him a nice friendly bump. And then I back off of him, and then he slams it in reverse, and then boom, and just slams right into me. Good Lord, man. Now I got to pay for this shit.
That's a Thunder bro right there.
Yeah.
All right, so I know Jason's got a lot of fun questions for you, so I'm gonna hand it off to him. He's gonna hammer you with some quick ones.
Yeah, you don't have to dive too deep into these, but like I told you on email, I just watched Ford versus Ferrari, and it really opened my eyes to what you guys do. Have you ever done a 24-hour race?
I have not, but I want to. It's on my bucket list to do the Rolex 24 for sure.
So part of that, I mean, whether it's a 24, what's your longest race on the circuit?
For us, the Coke 600 at Charlotte, 600-mile race. It's pretty. It takes probably 4.5 hours. And with the like we talked about, and it's hot in Charlotte, North Carolina, so it's hot, humid, all that stuff. By the end of that 4.5 hours, actually, I tried desperately not to look at the scoreboard or ask what lap we're on or how many laps are to go, because it's 400 laps. And by lap 300 or 350, you're like, just get me out of this damn thing. So it is a long time.
That's like driving from New York City to South Carolina in 4.5 hours.
Yeah, just straight shot.
Yeah. Yep.
At what point during the race, though, does your team tell you, hey, you got, what number do you need to know to step it up?
It's crazy because even though our sport is a little bit tougher to get people to fully grasp all the preparation and how the races work and how tough it is from start to finish. But I have the easiest time explaining it. Like, let's say the Coke 600, a 600-mile, painfully long race, is still every lap of the race in every move you make and everything from every pit stop, every, position you can gain, lose, every 10th of a second, all that matters just as much as what I would equate every play with like an NFL quarterback. Like it's not like, it's like a quarterback of a team. It's, how they have to be everything all out and perfect every play of the game, and every single bit matters, even if it's first quarter, and there's still so much game left. It's kind of the same way for us, where every bit of your race, can change the outcome of your next pit stop. Or, man, if we were in third when we came into pit, we would have probably not got run into rather than running sixth or seventh when we came into pit. And it's down to such a science where everybody is so good that every single bit of it matters. So you pretty much have to be on top of your game and perfect from start to finish of the race. So it's pretty mentally draining, and one that's that long.
I think, watching that movie, that was probably the most eye-opening thing. A, just how focused you had to be the whole time, and B, how fast shit is just coming at. I mean, we drive 70 miles an hour on the highway, and our reaction time is probably not great. You're driving, upwards of 200 miles an hour. What do you do to train your body to stay so focused for so long?
I think it's just you're just straight up pumped full of adrenaline and wide ass open for that whole time. So you're so zoned, and people are like, "Oh, you ever get like bored when you're riding around there?" I'm like, dude, that's just the same as asking a QB if he's bored in the middle of a play because he's been playing for a while in the game or something. You're just so pumped full of adrenaline and wide open but I think once the checkered flag flies, it's like, then you're all of a sudden like, oh man, I am tired and ready to sit and eat and do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I was wondering because like it's one thing, like like take the sport of fighting, right? Like you get this huge adrenaline dump, and then when that's done, it just slams you. Like you just get exhausted because everything is, you're like, your body is like, fuck you, dude. Like it does not like that stuff.
And it's interesting too, because a lot of the drivers, I would say the vast majority, it's become like the fad of a lot of them do like distance biking. I am like one of the oddballs of the training world, and I feel like I significantly feel a lot better when I got out of the race car compared to most. I'll get out of the car, and a lot of them are really, really, really skinny. And two, also what's helped me a lot is, having, for a lot of the lifts and workouts and stuff we do, improving my mobility has helped so much. But we sit in a pretty shitty, bent over, crappy position for your body for hours, and every single weekend. I don't want to train in a hunched over, crappy position, on top of all that. And the way they train is just odd to me. I'm definitely an oddball, no disrespect to them, but it's just weird that most of them, it's like a couple guys started doing it, and then it grew to where it's like damn near everybody gets on the road and just trains long distance stuff every single day, and that's their form of training. And they think I'm crazy, and I'm like, I'm training to be an athlete. I'm training to be athletic and explosive and a good athlete. And they someone will think I'm weird for doing it, but I feel so much better when I get out of the car. And two, I feel like I can also afford to sweat out what I do. I'm a little bit thicker, and I feel good when I get out of the race car. And like training the way I have has helped me to feel just, and not on top of that, what you're talking about as far as hormonally and athletically, like I train to be an athlete, and a lot of these guys train in a not that it's not being athletic. It's very tough. No disrespect to it. It's just very different, and I feel like what I've done has helped me a lot more directly in the race car than what I think some of those guys do.
Yeah, I think that's in a lot of sports. So you get this archaic training methodology centered around sport specificity where, like I grew up playing baseball, and even in the professional ranks, you'd spend all day throwing a ball or swinging a bat, and then you go in the weight room and they try to emulate you throwing a ball or swinging a bat. And you're like, you do enough of that, and those things, they do create imbalances, not just in body positioning, but in like the energy systems and the demand of that. So most sports specific athletes don't need more sports specific training. They, especially at your level, you've done it for tens of thousands of hours. You understand what you need to be. The foundation though of just fitness, because any like world-class athlete, the one thing they have in common is that regardless of their sport, they were freaks. They were for like Michael Jordan, right? Like he could play Major League Baseball, he could play in the PGA, he could run a mile, like he could do all these things. And that foundation of general athletic ability is what allowed him to be so amazing at his sport. But what people try to do is it's almost backwards. And that's the difference between kind of, the westernized sports-specific training methodologies and what you see kind of in like the Soviet Union, where the way they develop athletes in the Soviet Union is when you're a kid, you don't go into a sport, you go into the athletics program. And you get trained in multiple different ways, and then they figure out what sport you're going to fit into, but that base is there because that foundation is really, it's what's going to hold the house up in the end. So I think you're doing it really smart. I mean, even now as baseball training starts to evolve, they're starting to introduce things like, deadlifts and compound lifts, whereas before that was really poo-pooed a lot because they said, oh, you're going to get too big or you'd be too muscle bound. But now we got guys throwing 100 miles an hour and hitting 500-foot home runs because they're actually training. So,
yeah.
It sure is the same way. It's like you have to be an athlete first before you can be a sport-specific athlete.
So speaking of that.
Yep, exactly. That's what I've enjoyed.
Speaking of, Russian babies becoming athletes, there's no like college program to become a race car driver. How do you become one? Like you're too young at 6 years old for your parents to be like, hey, let's get him in the race car driving track in life. So at what point in your life are you thinking, this is my career?
So I'll condense this a whole bunch. I always joke and say one day, hopefully a long time from now, and hopefully after a long, successful career, hopefully I need to write a book on it, because that'd be the only way people would even believe the journey that I've gone about to do this and get here. So the short version is nobody in my family ever raced. I'm a first generation guy. My dad was actually big into baseball. He coached the scouting league for the Mets many, many, many years ago. And so that was his passion, was actually baseball. So I had a dirt bike and a four-wheeler when I was 5 years old and was wide ass open on everything. And then my dad would, we were at 5 years old. We were watching TV, and he's flipping through the channels. And at the time, obviously, I'm riding wide open on everything, love to just go fast. And he passes by NASCAR, and I told him, like, both my parents, go back to that. My dad looks at me. He's a super hardcore Italian, loud kind of guy, and he was like, "What the hell do you want to watch that for?" And so I made him go back to it, and every single Sunday I watched NASCAR. And so the short version of this is we at my baseball award ceremonies when I was 5 or 6, whatever, 6 years old, my dad was like, "This is my little Matt. I call him my little Jeff Gordon. He likes baseball but loves racing." And one of the kids on our team actually raced at a local dirt track, was like, "Hey, come check it out. We raced at a local dirt track." I thought, okay. So at 7 years old is actually when I went and checked it out. Of course, loved it. At 7 years old, I got a go-kart for my birthday to go out and start racing. And we just did it for fun through the years. And we were going out and winning everything. And then it was actually other people that were kind of influenced my family for us to be dumb enough and naive enough, thank goodness, to move across country when I was 13 years old, because we were winning everything out there, and people were like, I'm telling you, you guys need to move across country and pursue this. And we were just kind of doing it for fun, but it was my only passion. So we were naive enough to pick up and move across country. And the short version of this is then I start racing out here in North Carolina, and I get to, racing, winning everything out here, but realized how tough it is. Like, wow, we're in NASCAR country, like a million people want to do the same thing, and it takes a lot of money. So in 2007, we actually quit as a family. I came home from high school. I think I was a junior. I can't remember. I came home from high school, and our truck, trailer, race cars, and every single piece of racing equipment we had were sold, gone. And my parents they were so devastated they couldn't even tell me. They just had to do it and get it done, and then kind of tell me after and explain to me when I go home from school, like, hey, we're really sorry. We're in a tough financial situation. We've kind of sacrificed everything we can to get you here. And so from that point on, they supported me 100%, but it was too taxing on us. And so from that point on, that's the part where I'd really have to write a book on it, but I've just had to like fight and claw and kind of do it a real unorthodox way of getting opportunities and driving for smaller, underfunded teams, and just getting in and taking them to all their best performance and their history. And then I jumped to another team, a smaller team. And then I got an opportunity for a small underfunded team in the Cup Series. So at the top level I'm skipping a lot of pieces here of how this all worked when I was younger. I got signed with a big team, but it was when the economy was at a tough time, and it led me to go on this path. And then I got an opportunity in 2015 to drive for BK Racing, small underfunded team. And the team was missing races, like not performing well. And I hopped in the car and we took them to all their best finishes in existence. We had like top tens, things that were just unheard of for the team, and it got attention. So I went to another underfunded team, and they were running way in the back, like last every week, but they wanted to get better. So I jumped to that team. We kind of got the right people together and then took them to all their best finishes in history. And then, this part's important, so I won't leave it out. I'll shorten this up. So, but I got to a point where I felt like I was being known as the guy that can drive for small teams and just the small team guy. But that wasn't my lifelong goal. My goal was to win in the Cup Series and lay it all on the line. So I had a ride with this team at the time, but I decided to take a step back and basically take all my chances and risk it all with no ride for the following year. This was at the end of 2018. And I basically quit my job with having nothing lined up for the next year. And I really had no idea but I just knew I was not going to advance anywhere past where I was if I didn't like make some sort of insanely bold decision that people said I was crazy for. And then it ended up being that Casey Kane retired, and this 95 team was a mid-level team. They wanted to grow and get better, and they picked me up. And then it was kind of a building process. And last year we went out in the second half of the year, once we got that team really established and going, we painfully almost won the Bristol night race. We were leading until 10 or 15 to go, and I was lapping Ryan Newman, and he made contact with us and damaged my car, and it hurt the handling of my car, and I got passed by Denny Hamlin with like 10 to go, and it was absolutely painful. But we had a bunch of top fives, tons of top tens, best performance they'd ever had. And then that Bristol race, I found out. I'll stop rambling here in a second.
Oh, I'm enjoying this, Matt.
So I found out before the Bristol race, this was a 1-year deal basically with this team. So I found out before the Bristol race that week that I wasn't going to be able to return to that team for 2020. That was it. So I'm out of a ride again. And this was the week leading into that Bristol race. And just so happens we had been getting top fives, top tens, but they had a development driver in the pipeline named Christopher Bell in the Toyota pipeline. That was the team that I was driving for Toyota last year. And he was basically, there was more drivers in their stable than room. And I was just on a 1-year deal to kind of come in and improve that team. And so he was going to be taking over my spot. And we had just gotten on fire, or we built that team up. we're getting all these top 5s, top 10s. And then we go to Bristol, ironically, that week when I find out, and I let everybody know. And my wife was crying in tears every single day. I'm devastated. My family's devastated. I have no idea what we're going to do. And I'm just like, man, I can't control what's going to happen. Let me just go out here and keep doing my job, keep doing what we're doing. And we go out and almost win that Bristol night race. And I get out of the car, like devastated. I can't even say words. I was so devastated we lost. And then I got out of the car. When they came to interview us, the whole crowd, it was the craziest. I'll never forget this the rest of my life. It was emotional, but I get out of the car and the whole grandstands, like when I went to get interviewed and I'm on the big screen, it started screaming and like erupted. And I actually looked around like an idiot and was like, is there a fight going on or what's happening? Like something happened. And then I realized it was for us, like as a team, that people were pulling for us because it's kind of an underdog situation, that they were all screaming for us. And it was just a really emotional week for me and my wife. So I couldn't even get words out. It's actually, it's emotional even talking about it. It's crazy. So anyways, that happens. Don't even know what to feel. And then fast forward, not long after that, I got a phone call from my team now, the 21 team, the Wood Brothers Racing, which is, if you get the chance to watch it, the documentary, Wood Brothers Racing, it's great. They're the most historic, legendary team in NASCAR and been around since the very beginning. And they're an amazing top tier team with so much history. And they called me, and Paul Menard was driving for them, and they called me and said, hey, can you come meet with us? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I wonder what they're going to ask me, because Paul Menard drives that car. And just so happens right around that time, Paul Menard was thinking of retiring, and then at that same week found out I'm going to be a free agent. And he said, hey, get Matt, like I'm stepping away, get him. So they talked to me, and that's how all of this came together. And now I'm driving for the best opportunity in my whole life, where I can go out there this year and we can focus on kicking ass and winning some races.
Dude, that's an awesome story. I love that story, man. And like when I listen to it, it just reminds me of like all these people when you're young and you just happen to be flipping through the TV, and all of a sudden this seed gets planted in your brain. Like, what if I could be a NASCAR driver? You know, like what if that was possible? And once that seed is planted, it just keeps kind of growing, and then an opportunity comes, and another opportunity comes, and you've obviously dealt with a lot of challenges and setbacks and adversity and all that stuff. And it's just a testimony to, if you just keep doing things right, if you keep working hard, you keep the right things in your heart and in your mind, that, you know, it's gonna work out. And it's so challenging, but like that's just mindset right there, is like keep moving forward. And you know, like if people recognize that guy who went to bat for you to get you on the team, he just recognized you as a good guy, as a hard worker, and as a talented person. And people want to give those folks opportunities. They want to give good people opportunities because they're special. You know, you're special, Matt. And I just love it. I love that story. I've seen it in a lot of different sports, you know, like what if this was possible? And it's another thing, like, you know, hearing your story about your family and how they were willing to move the country across the country and make those sacrifices. Like those are things that they put into you, that you then pass on to all the people around. It's contagious, you know, like those attitudes, that mindset is a contagious thing. And you have no idea the effect that you have on other people just by being you. So I love hearing that, man.
So
yeah, it's cool. Thanks. It's been a crazy journey for sure.
You mentioned you got sideswiped. Accidents happen on the course. I would imagine, you know, so I compete in jiu-jitsu and we train hard, but you have to trust the people you're training with, your partners. Is there a trust amongst the drivers? Because if not, I mean, people can just go out, ram each other, take the best out, but you're competing. But at the same time, is there some sort of camaraderie amongst you?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool group, actually, because all the drivers are, you know, as fierce of competitors as we are. We've really all come together more so probably in the recent years versus the old school days, where everybody's like really also works together too, to like for the best interest of the sport. Because all the drivers really do care a lot, and they're all pretty relatable, like cool, good guys. So, but as far as the on-track stuff, yeah, there has to be a level of trust or trusting in the other guy's ability or awareness on the track because if I, sneak to his outside and get right to his quarter panel coming off the corner and we're coming up on the wall, you're like trusting that his spotter is communicating to him that I'm on his outside, that he also is like aware of what's going on. He's aware that I'm on his outside, and he's going to give you that room to not just wipe us both out and end both of our days early, So there's a lot of trust that has to go on the racetrack. That's probably can be a little bit different than some other sports, or we do have to have that kind of belief or trust in some of the guys we're racing. Or you got to know too, what different guys' characteristics are, because you have to learn them and know them. Because when I got some damage from lapping Ryan Newman, Ryan Newman's been around forever. He's one of the veterans of our sport, but he's also very, very well known as the biggest pain in the ass to pass, and he will make his car 50 feet wide when you're trying to get around him. So he's a real pain in the ass to try and race around. Good guy, but he's tough. And so when I'm coming up on lapping this guy and trying to keep the lead, you got to think of those things like, okay, this guy is probably a tougher one. This guy's not going to give me any room. And sure enough, it turned out to be that way. But yeah, you got to judge all your people you're racing around and have some trust in them.
Yeah, I think at that world-class level, and you see it in a lot of sports, everyone has to be so talented. You have to sacrifice so much to get there. And I think sometimes, hey, you're all different, but at the end of the day, you have so much more in common than you have differences. You know what I mean? And
yep.
I've seen a lot of athletes, even rivals, that maybe during their career, they had some back and forth or this and that. And then after their careers, they're best friends because they realize they're exactly the same.
Yep.
It's the same personality. You understand each other at a really deep level. And that's a special kind of camaraderie that, you're afforded because you are where you are, and you've made those sacrifices and been through this. It's like the shared suffering we talk about in CrossFit. It's like you get it in a way that other people just can't understand.
Right? Yeah, no, it's totally true.
But with that being said, is there a driver you don't like?
I've gotten asked that a lot. As far as personality and stuff like that, honestly, I wish I could give a guy. I'm a straight up freaking honest guy. I just kind of say whatever and don't really worry about it. But honestly, I get along with every single one of them really well. Because to your point, Dave, I think that we all understand that we're all the same sort of people at the end of the day. So we all actually get along pretty well. Not to say that we don't get really pissed off at each other at certain times. I would say I like everybody, but if I'm coming up to pass or race around somebody, there's some where you're like, man, this guy kind of drives like a jackass or whatever. But so to answer your question, I'd say on the racetrack, I always worry the most about catching or passing Ryan Newman. It's like, this guy again, just kill me now. But as far as personality, they're all right.
Last couple of questions from me, Matt. So is there a direct relationship between how good you are as a driver on the course and how good you are at video games?
Thank goodness, no, because I'm not that great on the video games. And I get on my simulator that's sitting behind me, my iRacing simulator, and I get my ass kicked by people who are probably 13 years old. So thank goodness the real life factor is more important.
They're talking shit on their Xbox.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to find it. So a couple more questions. Any sport requires good rest, recovery, etc. But it seems like driving specifically is so mental that sleep must be huge in your life. What do you do to make a good night's sleep, especially before race day? And do you have a ritual associated with that? Because Dave and I have traveled the world for seminars, and sleeping in a hotel is not as easy, as sleeping next to your beautiful wife or some whoever you're sleeping next to at the time. What do you do to make sure you get a good night's sleep?
Yeah. So it's freaking huge and important, because I can't be lollygagging around and tired and not giving confident feedback and decisions and stuff throughout, not even just race day, but the whole weekend. I got to be as sharp as I can possibly be, just like, any athlete. But yeah, as far as post race, I mean, they drain you, and like we talked about, I got to sleep, rest, recover, eat a shitload after a race, all. But on the I prioritize sleep a ton during the week, and then on race weekends, it's actually kind of cool. I'm sort of a homebody, pretty chill kind of guy. So on my race weekends, my wife will come with me to some of them, but I don't have a motorhome. A lot of the drivers do. I don't, so I choose to do a pretty easy form of travel. I fly out, say if it's Friday morning, sometimes Thursday nights. But I feel like I almost get more sleep on the road, which is nice. One, because I need to prioritize it, and two, because there's really not a whole lot of distractions, because I'll go do my job for the day and then go out to eat with usually my friend Ryan or somebody, or maybe my friend Mason. We'll go out to eat, get a big dinner or whatever, and then I get back to the hotel and it's like, well, it's 8:00, and then I don't really have any like video game behind me or iRacing set up to distract me, or a bunch of different stuff. So I just get more sleep probably on the road, as long as I'm in a good, nice hotel. Try and pick really nice places to stay at, because that stuff is super important. And then my Saturdays, same sort of deal. Go qualify, hit a workout afterwards, feel good, and eat dinner, and then go back. And I'm usually in the room so early, and I don't have a whole lot of distractions that I can, prioritize. Even if I have to get up early the next day, I can be in bed at 9:00 and get a good night's sleep.
Make sure it's not chest day the day before. You won't be able to lift those arms up.
That's kind of what I wanted to just ask you is, have you ever hit a Muscle Anarchy workout and been so sore that it's actually impacted you on race day?
Yeah, that is a great story. I was hoping you would ask that, because I did. Oh goodness, it was an arm day, because I was like, no big deal, because that's not going to tax me too bad. I'll just hit a little arm day, and so I did one of the Anarchy arm days. And the next, I did it early. I did it on like a Thursday or something, because I started my week on a Sunday, or I can't, because we had a Saturday race, whatever. Either way, I ended up doing the arm day the day before practice. Practice is on Friday. Hit the arm day on Thursday. I'm like, cool, yeah, it's not too bad. And then the next day I'm in the car, and, in this seated position, and, all tensed up and everything. I'm running practice. And like after 2 laps, I'm like, oh God, my arm's cramping up, and I'm shaking it out on the straightaway. I'm stretching my arm out, shaking it out real quick before I get to the next corner. And then I get out of the car after practice, and I'm literally stretching, making sure I'm super hydrated. I'm like, oh my God, my arms are cramping in the damn car. I need to be a little smarter.
Oh, that happens to me all the time. Not in the car, but after chest, back, or arms day, usually it doesn't hit me until hours later, sometimes in the middle of the night, and everything will lock up, and I'll be screaming, like in the middle of I'm in the bed and I'm screaming, and I'm like, oh my God. It's insane. But,
yeah.
Hey, it comes with the territory,
Yeah, I did that after a leg day last week. We were at a Mexican restaurant. I looked like a moron. We worked out early in the day, and then I felt, I felt good stuff. I was all well hydrated and all, but we were sitting down with my friend Kelly, actually, you'll meet here soon, and his fiance, and we were at a Mexican restaurant, and then we'd been sitting there chit-chatting for like an hour and a half or something, and I got up to go to the bathroom. I stand up, and I almost fell over and had to grab a chair next to me, because I got up. It was like muscles contracted and I almost cramped. I was like, oh God, I about fall over. I'm stretching out and couldn't hardly walk to the bathroom. So
I've been in tears.
It's funny though, because it's funny because you'll work out, and it's such a tough workout, but it's cool because you'll have those funny moments and things, but I don't ever feel like wrecked. It's nice. You don't feel wrecked. It's just like you got such a good pump and such a good workout, and I don't feel like destroyed the next day where I can't walk and I'm miserable. It's just it's interesting how it's worked.
Yeah, that's another one of the differences that I've kind of picked up in the past couple of years, is just respecting the amount of recovery that's required to grow. And, before I would try to train my legs 3 times a week and really not get anywhere, I wouldn't really progress. And what I've learned is that, if you just hit a body part right and you give it enough time to recover, not only is it nice because you're going to progress really fast, but that's really what's required to grow. If you're hitting legs really hard once a week, that's plenty, so long as that the stimulus is potent enough. But more isn't always better, and that's why I love our splits, where it's just like we kind of hit the major muscle groups once a week, but we really hit them. And you get enough time, so but the next time you come back to legs or you come back to chest, like you feel like you're ready to lift and be strong again. You're not still sore or beat up from it.
Yep.
But hey, yeah, that's cool, man. Matt, it's been such a pleasure talking with you, dude. It's been great to kind of get to know you personally, and it now makes sense to me why you are where you are. At Thunder Bro, we talk about the training, the lifestyle, the mindset, but really in my heart, Thunder Bro is about bringing the best version of yourself to the world and trying to pick up the people around you. And you're an inspiration, man. I can't wait. We're going to come out and see you at a race. We'll get some training in. And I really thank you for taking the time. For those of you guys who are out there, you can find Matt at Matt D Racing on Instagram. Is there any websites or anything where people can kind of see your team or what you guys are doing out there?
Yeah, man, and thanks for having me on, dude. It's been cool. But the best, my Instagram, like you said, is Matt D Racing. My Twitter is the same, and my Facebook is Matt DiBenedetto Racing. If you can spell that out, it's a long one. But as far as my team stuff, the Wood Brothers Racing, you can any merchandise, any stuff, team information, all that is on their website. So I just do all my stuff through social media and then let them handle their stuff through their website and the team.
Cool. And you're gonna be known as Matt, the jacked NASCAR dude.
Oh yeah.
Last question before we sign off. Dave gets in the car when we come to visit. What's most likely to happen? He cries, he throws up, or he shits himself?
None of the ones are good.
I
definitely laughing.
I would say definitely shit some stuff.
All right.
Going with C, final answer.
Yep, I love it, dude. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you. Hey, make sure I'll have Jason send you an email. We're going to send you out some really cool Thunder gear for where you're on the road and stuff, and some cool swag for you to sport.
Yeah, man, sounds good. I wear a bunch of the stuff. I got my friend Kelly Thunder Bro tank top for his Christmas present, so we're always pretty broed out. And yeah, man, we look forward to seeing you guys at one of the races, a Kansas race or whatever works out. It'd be freaking fun, and hit a little training session on Saturday or something maybe.
Hell yeah. Well, Matt, thank you for taking the time, dude. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, man, you guys too, man. Appreciate it.
Say hi to all your boys. Tell them we said what's up.
Will do.
All right, man. Take care, dude. Thank you.
You too. See you guys.
Bye-bye.